Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Matt. You're watching MTG Ownage. I've been out of commission with an eye problem for a while, but I'm gonna finish this Forgotten Realms spoilers, which it might already be past, but hey, we're gonna finish what we started here because the commander cards have come out. We've already went all over all the standard stuff, so if you want to see those, they're in the previous videos. But now we're gonna look at all the cards that are coming in the commander precons with Forgotten Realms, and kind of just give a quick review. And yeah, you can leave comments down below on any of them if you have your own opinions. And let's see what we're working with. I've also found out that this set replaces a core set. So apparently there's not going to be a core 2022. Not the commander set, just Forgotten Realms in general. So I thought that was interesting. All right. Looks like we're seeing some more characters, some more famous characters from the Forgotten Realms. No surprise. This comes courtesy of Scryfall set. All right, here we go. Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Oh my, he's 5 CMC with melee, which I believe is whenever he attacks, all your creatures get +1/+1. All your attacking creatures get +1/+1. So he's essentially kind of a 5/5 when attacking. And he's, well, he's 4/4 star, and with melee will turn into a 5/5. A barbarian, nice. If a creature you control attacking would cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. Okay, this could be really interesting. Getting those additional triggers is often super cool in Commander. No specific triggers are coming to mind off the top of my head, but there are definitely quite a few creatures with on-attack triggers. And I believe this might work for some equipment and stuff too. I don't know, leave a comment down below. What cool stuff would Wolfgar help double trigger? And next we got Midnight Pathlighter. 2 white and a blue. Human Wizard, 2/3. Can't creatures you control can't be blocked except by legendary creatures. Ooh, this is really good. So that's nearly unblockable, I want to say. Not completely unblockable because people are always going to have their commanders and stuff, but it basically means that all their little tokens and helper assistant creatures can't block anymore. That could win you the game. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, venture into a dungeon. And also, someone left a comment about what venture into the dungeon does. Apparently, you don't need to have a dungeon pre-selected when you venture. You get to start a dungeon of your choice. And when you finish one, you can start a new one. So that's kind of cool. It's just kind of like a freebie effect of your choice based on the dungeons available and where you're at in one. All right. Well, I think this Midnight Pathlighter is quite good. Probably going to see some play. So far, so good. All right. We got Nihilor. Looks like it's some sort of mind flayer dude. 2 white, blue, and a black. Okay, and it's a horror. 3/5. Whenever ETBs for each opponent, tap up to 1. Wait, I think we've already seen this guy, haven't we? Yeah, we already reviewed this guy. He was in the previous spoiler, so I'm not going to talk about him again. Just know that he is pretty darn cool, and he's a mythic. So, yeah, time to run more removal, because this guy's going to steal everybody's creatures, and everyone's just going to want to get rid of him so they get their creatures back. He's one of those. But super good, super strong, very annoying creature. If you're playing these colors, you're going to want this guy, I think, just because of his very powerful effect. It looks like you do have to have a lot of additional creatures, so probably best in another deck with a lot of other creatures, because you have to tap an untapped creature you control and gain control of something with lesser power. But looks like you can use him as one of the taps to grab something with 2 or less power. So still pretty good. Could steal up to potentially 3 creatures, 1 from each opponent, assuming you're playing a 4-player commander game. Next we got Ride the Avalanche, a blue and a green instant. Okay, blue and a green instant. Nice casting cost. The next spell you would cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash. Okay, when you cast your spell this turn, put X +1/+1 counters on up to one target creature, where X is the mana value of that spell. Alright, this has some amazing utility, just being able to cast or flash at a creature or a sorcery or an artifact, and then also buff a creature based on its mana cost. Sure, it's going to be a little pricey because you're going to have to put this on top of the casting cost of whatever it already was. But make no mistake, this is pretty strong. I'm probably going to play this in my Calamax deck. Calamax the Stormsire, because this would double cast, and this would trigger twice on the next spell and double the counters. I don't know, I guess it's not super good in Calamax, but being able to flash out a creature and drop some counters on it is pretty good. Well, let's think about something here. I don't actually think you could put these +1/+1 counters on the creature you control. Because, okay, let's cast Ride the Avalanche. And say you let it resolve. Its effect is waiting to be triggered. And then you cast a creature. When you cast that creature as a flash, it triggers this put X +1/+1 counters on something. Your creature would not be in play yet, so you can't target the creature you're casting. You have to target something else that's already in play. So a little bit of a drawback there. It would be really nice if you could drop the counters on the creature you're casting, but also you can use this to cast sorceries or enchantments or whatever you want. So still quite good, but it could be a little better if it were worded slightly different. Even if you don't get the +1/+1 counters, like you have no other creatures, and you just get to flash in something at the end of your opponent's turn, right before your turn, it's still quite good. So I think this is quite a decent card, assuming you have the right type of deck for it to be fully taken advantage of. So yeah, nice card. All right, next we got Storvold, Frost Giant Jarl, 4 green, white, and a blue. I believe we've already reviewed this guy. However, I noticed when I reviewed him, I said him wrong. So he has Ward 3, gives all your other creatures Ward 3. That's super good. That's going to make your board really hard to deal with unless someone has a full board wipe. Alright, but when he enters the battlefield or attacks, choose one or both. I thought this was only one, but you could choose both of these. One of your creatures gets base power and toughness 7/7, and target creature has base power 1/1. So you could essentially buff one of your guys and shrink one of your opponent's guys anytime he ETBs or attacks. Now this is really good on attack because you could just essentially swing with him and one other guy and basically have 2 7/7s and then shrink down your opponent's biggest creature. It's going to be really hard to deal with, and they can't just target him with removal easily. Yeah, I think Storvold is pretty strong. Obviously, he's got a huge casting cost, so he better be strong, but I like it. I love big creatures that are hard to deal with, that really mess up your opponent's board. You know me, or maybe you don't. If you don't, consider subscribing, and we can get to know each other. That's my blurb for the video. All right, next we got Hurl Through Hell. 2 black and a red, instant. Exile target creature until the end of turn. You may cast until the end of your next turn. You may cast that card. Spend your mana as any color. This is quite good. So obviously you want to use it during your opponent's turn, and then during your turn you get to untap and have plenty of mana to cast whatever you exiled. Yeah, this is extremely strong removal for Commander, because let's hypothesize a little bit here. Say you remove this dude, you exile him, you get your creature back, and next turn you get to cast Nihilor and do these annoying shenanigans. And there's just so many annoying shenanigan creatures that you can steal with this, well, get rid of, which is going to be super nice. And then you get to cast it. So it's almost like a 2-for-1, or if you exile something that has a super powerful ability that does a bunch of stuff, it's going to feel like a 3-for-1 or 4-for-1. Yeah, this is really strong. Really strong. I like this card. All right, next up we got Karzakar, the Eye Tyrant, 3 black and a red, a legendary beholder. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature that player controls and go good. I think we already saw this guy. I think we already reviewed him. Whenever target opponent attacks. Okay. So 5/5 for 5. Yeah, we'll talk about them real quick again. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature that player controls and goad it. So this, you might think it's only when he attacks, but the way he reads, it's when any of your creatures attack. But this only triggers once per opponent. So you could attack all three of your opponents, tap one of each of their creatures, goad one of each of their creatures, and then you get this additional effect where whenever they attack someone else, you get to draw a card and lose life. Lose 1 life is not a big deal in Commander, but drawing a card is super nice. So yeah, this guy's going to see a lot of play because the goad effect is super good. Yeah, and the drawing cards is super good, and he's a 5/5 for 5, so yeah, you're really strong. And it just puts the static ability on basically all of your creatures. As you know, you can just sit back with him and never attack if you don't want to risk losing him, and just swing with your other guys and get his effect. So yeah, I love this guy. I absolutely love this card. And this Hurl Through Hell. I love these cards. I can't wait to put them in my Blim Comedic Genius deck. Speaking of, if this video gets 4 likes, I'll do a Commander deck tech on my Blim Comedic Genius deck. Alright, next up we got Cloth's Will. X, red, red, green, instant. Okay, I'm liking this already. Choose one. If you control your commander, as you cast the spell, you may choose both. I like this reads as you cast the spell, because this means even if they remove your commander before this resolves, you still get both. Alright, you get Flame Breath, X damage to each creature without flying, and you get Smash Relics, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments as an instant. Oh, this is amazing. This is dropping right into my Rasheen deck for sure. It's probably going to be an upgrade to one of my non-X artifact or enchantment removal cards. Yeah, that's super nice. Jeez, we're seeing a lot of really good commander cards out of this set already. Just out of the first 8 here. All of them seem very solid. Alright, next up we got a dragon. 5 red and a green, cloth, unrivaled, ancient, legendary dragon, 4/4, flying haste. We might have talked about him already. I feel like we have. Whenever he attacks, add X mana in any combination where X total power of attack creatures. Spend this only to cast spells until the end of your turn. Don't lose mana. As you don't lose this mana as steps and phases in. Alright, so you're going to get a bunch of mana. You're going to get it right away. Yeah, I believe we did already talk about him. He's not bad. Red-green often wants this big mana for X. And back to Cloth's Will for a second, because obviously it combos pretty well with Cloth here. And it's got his name in it, so it makes sense. Yeah, you could use this mana to destroy a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, or this Earthquake. This Flame Breath is basically an Earthquake, except it doesn't hit players. Alright, let's go to Category of Mithril Hall, a very classic D&D character from some of the Drizzt books. Category of Mithril Hall, and what's cool about this is she's going to slot into Drizzt, because Drizzt's the same color super well, which makes sense, because in the books they are always fighting together and all that stuff. I haven't read all the books, but something seems weird about her picture. I feel like she's like scrunched down a bit. Does anyone else see that? Maybe it's just the angle of the photo or whatever, but okay. Oh, there we go. Alright, she's 2/2 for a green and a white. And she's got first strike, reach. Whenever she attacks, put +1/+1 counter on her for each equipment attached to her. 1, remove all counters, deal X damage to target attacking or blocking creature and opponent controls, where X is the number of counters moved in this way. I feel like she's pretty good. You've got a lot of equipment in your deck. Well, she's already a 2/2 for 2 with first strike and reach and other bonus stuff. But she's only first strike and reach if you don't have any other equipment. The rest of the stuff only does anything at all if you have equipment. But yeah, she's pretty cool. Just nice, cheap. Really, she could be a really good commander because I don't know, it's cheap casting cost. If she had some, I always say like if had this, I don't think it's fair to assume what it could have been. It is what it is. But what I was going to say is there's no card draw effect on her, which is what people tend to really love on these cheap casting cost commanders. But still really good. All right, Dragonborn Champion, 2 red green, 5/3 trample. Whenever source control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. That's super nice. Drawing a card is always super good, and it's any source. You can do it with a spell or creature. 5 damage is a pretty good chunk. All right, next up we have Extract Brain X. Blue black sorcery. Target opponent chooses X cards from their hand. Look at those cards. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its casting cost. I don't know if this is super good, to be honest. It seems just iffy because you could spend like 6 mana on this to look at 4 of their cards, and then they all just have a bunch of lands, or they show you their worst 4. Yeah, I don't think this is very playable. I mean, it could be amazing because you could get something out of their hand, cast it for yourself, but just the amount of mana you're going to need to spend to potentially make it useful, and the low end of this just doing pretty much nothing for all that mana could be really bad. Yeah, it's really cool in theory, but it also could be a dud. So I tend to try to avoid those type of cards in my deck. I don't know though. I'm on the fence about this because it could also just totally wreck someone and steal their biggest card. You could use it for yourself. It looks like you have to cast this card you look at in the same turn. So that's the big drawback, because another thing, they could just look at your untapped mana, see that you only have like 2 mana left after casting this, and just show you all the high CMC stuff they know you can't cast. And then you'd get nothing. So very, very risky play here on this Extract Brain. Could just do absolutely nothing, but it also, yeah, well, I don't know. I'm gonna know if you guys think this Extract Brain is playable. I don't think it is. All right, let's go to the next one. Ooh, another. This is a really high casting cost. I haven't seen this card at all. Fevered Suspicion. Sorry, I'm going to zoom way in. I'm going to see if I can get kind of a bigger display on the screen here. Looks like we got quite a few more, so this might be a bit of a long video. Fevered Suspicion. 6 black, red, 8 CMC sorcery. Each opponent exiles the top card from their library until they exile a non-land. You may cast them without playing their mana costs. You may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards without playing their mana cost. So they keep exiling until you get a non-land. Then you get to cast them for free. And there's this rebound, so you get to do it again. So you basically get their next 2 non-lands off the top of their deck to cast. Now this could be 6 free spells, some of which could be absolute bombs for free. Like you could potentially, I don't know, maybe you hit a giant guy like Storvold or something. Yeah, this is amazing. This reminds me of Villainous Wealth, sort of, except a little easier to play and in different colors. Villainous Wealth does a very similar thing, except it's X, so you could get a ton of cards, but this is only one person, and you could make X as high as you could possibly get. So it's sort of like a Villainous Wealth for black red. I think this is pretty cool. I like the card. I know it's super expensive and going to be hard to play, but if you can cheat to play, or if you just have a lot of mana, it having rebound makes it super strong. Alright, next we have Druid of Purification, 3 and a green, 2/3 Human Druid, ETB. Starting with you, each player chooses artifact or enchantment you don't control, and destroy each permanent chosen this way. Okay, yeah, this is quite good. So this is basically going to destroy 4 artifacts and enchantments, one of the ETBs. This might be a better Reclamation Sage. Sure, it costs 1 more mana, but you still get to hit the artifact or enchantment of your choice, and then you potentially get to hit 3 other artifacts and enchantments that you don't control. So nobody can hit your stuff when you play this guy. Yeah. So Rex Sage, 3 mana, destroys 1 artifact or enchantment. This is 4 mana, essentially going to destroy 4 artifact or enchantments. Yeah, Druid of Purification is very strong. I can see a lot of people going to put it in place of Rex Sage because it's still an ETB. It's not necessarily cast. You can flicker it or recur it from your graveyard or whatever you would do with Rex Sage to get its effect again. Just the same with this guy, except you get to hit a lot more stuff. Yeah, so it's almost like a Bane of Progress. Except it's cheaper and it doesn't turn into a massive creature. It's just 2/3, but still. Yeah, I think this is kind of a good in-between of Bane of Progress and Rex Sage. And it has some nice interaction with your opponents actually getting to choose stuff and do stuff. Yeah, I think this card's amazing. This is definitely a must include in a lot of decks that have green. I really like it. Alright, next we have Indomitable Might. 3 and a green. Flash, enchant creature. Enchant creature is +3/+3. Creature may assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. That's quite nice. So I'm trying to think of where this would be super good. Of course, you can do it as like a trick. I'm not a huge fan of the casting costs because someone could just remove it in response and you lose whatever they kill and this card. But it could also help you get your giant creature to do its damage to your opponent, especially your commander. If you have a really big commander that can do over 20 damage, this can help one-shot as it can no longer chump block it, basically. So, might see some play, Indomitable Might, but we've definitely seen potentially stronger cards. Cool design. Alright, next up we got Neverwinter Hydra. XX green. Double X, alright. When ETBs roll XD6s, enters a number of +1/+1 counters equal total of those results. Trample, ward 4. Oh my goodness. You get to, I love this. Just rolling a bunch of d6 and adding them up. Oh yeah, I'm playing this. And ward 4, so it's going to be really hard to just remove. Yeah. And it has trample built in. So you could potentially play this for 4 mana. X is 1. And roll a d6 and you might get a 1/1. Or you might get a 6/6 for 4. So a little risky with the dice rolling, but if you make X like 4 or 5, that's going to be like 10 mana though. To get it to 4, you get to roll. I don't know. I guess we'll have to do some playtesting and see if this is actually good. I'm on the fence about it because like for 6 mana, you have to roll 2d6. And you could get a 12 power creature, but most likely you're going to get 7. So let's think about the averages here. If you do X is 2, this is going to cost 6 mana. And you're going to get a 7/7 trample ward 4. But you could also snake eyes and get a 2/2. Or you could roll 2 6s and get a 12/12. Not bad. You just want to get this X as high as possible for the biggest possible Hydra, of course. I like it overall. I think it's decent design. Especially if you can give it haste. It's the trample. The ward 4 is what really sells it. If it didn't have the ward 4, I'd think it'd be just totally bad. But since it has ward 4, it's quite good. Okay, next we have Song of Inspiration. 3 green, instant. Choose 2 permanents in your graveyard, roll d20, and add the total mana value of those cards. Okay, so if you choose big things, you're probably going to get the high number easily. 1 through 14, return them to your hand. 15, return them to your hand. Gain life equal to their mana value. Instant. This is a nice little trick, especially I don't know, the casting cost is just too high, but this could potentially gain you a lot of life, and you could save it for when someone like drops a Bajuka Bog, respond to that trigger and get your stuff back or something like that. So not bad, not bad. I still think this is pretty good. I just wish it was a little bit cheaper. And I guess the biggest downside of it really is that it can only target permanents. So if you choose lands, you're not going to get the plus to the roll, and it's no the extra life anyway, because those are 0 CMC. But not being able to get your big instants and sorceries back is kind of a bummer. I'm not sure how I feel about this card. I think it's a bit iffy. It could be really good, but it could also just be sitting in your hand as a dud all game. Alright, next we got Wild Endeavor. 4 green green, roll 2 4-siders, and choose 1 result. Create a number of 3/3 beasts equal to that result. So you're probably going to get 2, 3, or 4 beasts, probably not 1, but you could get just 1, which is not good so far for 6 mana, but if you get a bunch of them, it's good. Alright, then search your library for a number of basic lands equal to the other result, put them in the battlefield tapped. Okay. It's a sorcery. If this was instant, it'd be crazy. It's not instant. I keep doing that. I keep assuming if it were different, would it be good? But that's not fair. It is what it is. It's not changing. It's a sorcery. Now, immediately, I want to say I don't really like this card because once you have 6 mana, ramping is not that good anymore. And this is definitely a ramp card, but it's still not bad. So you get like 1 through 4 beasts and 1 through 4 lands. It really helps your board state a ton. It's not bad. It's playable. It's playable. It's just not quite a bomb, which is typically what I look for when I see something this high of a CMC, is some kind of bomb. It's sort of a bomb though. You could get like 4 more lands and have 10 mana on your next turn and some beasts to hold you over in the meantime. It's not bad. It's not bad. Alright, Bag of Tricks, 1 of green. That's an interesting picture. Alright. 5 tap, roll d8, reveal cards, top your library into your revealed creature with mana value equal to the result. Put that card onto the battlefield, rest on the bottom. Okay, well you do get to reveal until you get a creature with that mana value. And you can do this as an instant. It doesn't have the activate only as a sorcery that most of these do. I feel like this is pretty good. Yeah, I really like this card. As long as you got creatures with 1 through 8 CMC, this is always going to hit something. And it goes directly into play. Yeah, I'm going to say Bag of Tricks is decent here. I think it's a pretty good card. Alright, and just reusing it. Saving it till the end of turn, or for a surprise blocker is pretty good. Yeah, I think it's a good card. Alright, Belt of Giant Strength, 1 and a green. Artifact equipment. Okay, okay. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 10/10. Nice. I love it already. Oh. Equip 10. Costs X less, where X is the power of creature it targets. So basically you got to pay the difference of whatever power it needs to get to 10. So if it's a 6/6, you got to pay 4 and it gets 4 more power. That's sort of interesting. It's a pretty interesting design. Overall, I like the card. I don't know if it's all that playable. Because, like, I don't know. If you play, like, an Elder Gargadon or something. Or, no, let's take one of these cards. Say you have a Druid of Purification that's out there from... You got its amazing ability already. You could turn them into a 10/10, but first you're going to pay this 2 and then 8 more. So it's going to cost, like, essentially 10 mana to give them 8 more power. I don't think it's as good as it seems. We'll see in playtesting. But I just feel like it's not as good as it seems. It doesn't give it trample or anything. I really wish it gave it trample or something. Cool design. I'm on the fence about whether it's good. I don't think it's good though. Alright, Reckless Endeavor, 5 red, sorcery. 7 CMC sorcery. Is this reminds me of Bilbo. Steal and treasure from the dragon. Alright. Roll 2d12, choose 1 result, deals damage equal to that result to each creature, then create a treasure equal to the other result. So this is essentially going to be a board wipe that creates you a bunch of treasures. Now d12s are amazing. I personally love d12s because there's something about them. I feel like it's a great axe. In D&D, a d12 is the great axe dice. And it's there's something about it. It's like there's an even chance to get a 12 as there's a 1, so you often just get a 12. or 11 or a 10, and it feels super nice. And you get to do 2 of them and choose how the results go. Now, worst case scenario, you get 2 low numbers and you end up doing like 2 damage and creating 1 treasure. That would be a real bummer. But you could also be like 12 damage and 12 treasures, which would be crazy. Or you might get like 10 damage, 3 treasures. So there's a lot of variation. Potentially a complete dud, but also could just completely change the game, because if you get more than 7 treasures, you could just cast another spell this turn with a high CMC. So there's an upside that this could generate more mana than its casting cost while hitting the board with quite a bit of damage. So yeah, the top end on this card is super nice for sure. Reckless Endeavor. Overall, I like it. I think it's quite playable. In the right deck, could be really good. Like Storm is probably going to play this. It's risky. You know, you got to get a 7 or higher on one of the dice to pay for itself, but it could feel like a free board wipe, or even better. Chances are you'll get above a 7 on one of these dice, but it's still a risk. I like it. I think it's not bad. Alright, Vengeful Ancestor, 2 red, 3/4 Flying Spirit Dragon. Alright, cool. What a picture. The art is interesting. So it's like this guy back here is summoning the Spirit Dragon. He looks like a Dragonborn from D&D. Alright, whenever it enters battlefield, go to target creature. Whenever goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller. Whenever a goaded creature attacks, deals 1 damage to its controller. So he's gonna be a creature that's nice to just have out there and potentially be goading or doing damage just for all the goaded stuff. But 3/4 flying for 4 is not too bad, and you get that goad right away. I think he's pretty good. He's going to affect the board state in some interesting ways, for sure. Because, you know, as it goes around everybody's turn, they're going to, whoever, you know, they're going to have to attack your opponents with the goaded stuff. They're going to get a little bit of damage. If you combo him up with, what was this other guy? The Eye Tyrant guy, you're going to get draw cards. Yeah, I feel like he's pretty good overall. Alright. Wild Magic Sorcerer, 3 and a red. Orc Shaman, 4/3. Whenever you cast, the first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. That's pretty cool. Little bonus effect, especially if you have a lot of stuff you cast from exile. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Not Flashback, not your commander. I don't think your commander counts as from exile. Just counts from command zone. But there's definitely stuff like the Rebound. I think this Rebound, does this cast from exile or does it cast from graveyard? I forget. But if you in the right deck, this could be really good. Just get a bunch of free spells from that Cascade. Alright, we got Berserker's Frenzy. Berserker's Frenzy, 2 and a red. Instant, cast this only before combat, during combat, before blockers. Roll 2d20, ignore the lower. Alright, 1 to 14, choose any number of creatures. They block this turn favorable. 15 to 20. You choose which creatures block this turn and how those creatures block. Alright, so 1 through 14, you can say these creatures got to block something. 15 through 20, you just get to set up the whole block. And you could say no creatures block and just get all your guys to go through. Berserker's Frenzy. I don't know. I'm on the fence about whether this is good or not. It could be really good. It also could be really bad. But it could also just win you the game because you could say no blockers. Chaos Dragon, 1 red, Flying Haste 4/4. It's super good already. Flying Haste 4/4 for 3. Attacks each combat if able. Beginning of combat on your turn, each player rolls a d20. If one or more opponent had the highest result, Chaos Dragon can't attack those players or planeswalkers they control. Each player rolls a d20. So whoever gets the highest result on this d20, you can't attack. You gotta attack someone that got lower. So there's only going to be one opponent that's cut out of this. And if you roll the highest on the d20, you can attack whoever you want. I think this is really good. It seems like some fun interaction too. So one lucky person you won't be able to attack, but it won't matter necessarily because there's still going to be two other people. And yeah, like I said, if you end up rolling the highest, then this effect is just like, doesn't matter. It's just a 4/4 flying haste for 3. Yeah, this Chaos Dragon, it seems really good to me. It's just so cheap. The biggest downside is that he attacks each combat of Able, so you might have to throw him into a bigger flyer, and he might just end up getting chump blocked or blocked by a bigger creature. He might just end up getting killed by blocks, and you can't save him for a blocker. So I see why he's a little bit cheaper. It makes sense. But its upside is potentially really good. Alright, Fiend Lash, 1 and a red. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has reach. That's reach is kind of an odd thing for red equipment to give, but alright, let's see here. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. I feel like this is quite good, because if you put this on one of your creatures, you have a really nice blocker. It's going to deter people from attacking you big time, because if they attack you, you got to reach, so it can block anything pretty much, except for totally unblockable or shadow or something. But they're not going to be able to get through with flyers, and you're going to be able to hit them back or planeswalker. So yeah, this is going to be a really strong defensive card. Potentially pretty good for attacking too with the +2 power, but yeah, I think this is decent. I don't know if it's super strong, but it's decent. The equip cost is pretty high, 3. It feels a little rough. Alright, next we got Maddening Hex, 1 red, enchantment, curse, enchant a player. Whenever enchant a player casts a non-creature, roll d6, deals damage equal to the result, then attach Maddening Hex to another one of your opponents chosen at random. So this is just going to bounce around between your opponents, deal them damage as they cast non-creatures. Yeah, this is pretty cool. This is just basically going to sit around all game and randomly kind of deal damage to your opponents throughout the game, I feel like. So I think this is pretty good for sure. Red is going to want something like this that just sits around and continues to do damage value all game, unless they spend removal on it. But yeah, I think Maddening Hex is pretty solid. I like it. Hellish Rebuke. 2 and a black, instant. Till the end of turn, opponent's control gain. Whenever this permanent deals damage to the player who cast Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice this permanent, you lose 2 life. Oh. Yeah, this is pretty good. It reminds me of, can't think of the name of the card. One of those cards where, like, you know, whenever you get hit, the creature gets killed. It's basically what it is, except, okay, say, you know, in best case scenario, they swing at you with a bunch of tokens. And, okay, whenever this permanent deals damage to the player who casts Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice the permanent. So anything they hit you with, they're going to have to sack, and they lose life. So it's going to be pretty annoying. The downside here is you still take the damage, so it's not going to like save you from a, if they swing out for the win with like a Crater Hoof Behemoth or something, you're still going to die. So that's the biggest downside, is it's just not going to save you from a giant attack, but it will save you from a small attack, and it's going to really annoy them. This would be better if they knew it was coming, because they would be deterred from attacking you to begin with. But since it's an instant, you basically surprise them with it, and they lose all their creatures, you take damage. So this is basically going to help your other 2 opponents that don't get affected by this, because they're going to be like, okay, you took a bunch of damage, you lost all your creatures, we're in a great situation, you guys are low. Okay, so maybe in its best case scenario, you just want to use this to remove a couple creatures. Like if someone swings at you with a couple creatures with evasion that are untargetable or hexproof or something, this gets around all of that hexproof, because it's just it triggers a sacrifice. So yeah, I feel like this definitely has some strong upside of being able to get rid of indestructible and hexproof stuff, but you gotta take some damage. Really interesting design. Overall, I like it. Might be fun to play. Alright, next up we got Lorcan, Warlock Collector, 5 black, 7 mana, Legendary Devil. Seems like they're printing a lot more devils and a lot less demons, which is interesting. I guess it doesn't really matter a whole lot. All right, flying 6/6 for 7. Whenever a creature is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you may pay life equal to its mana value. If you do, put it on the battlefield under your control. It's a warlock in addition to its other types. If a warlock you control will die, exile it instead. Yeah, this is good. You basically just want to get him out or cheat him out ASAP. And then he's just going to do this value thing where whenever an opponent... Yeah, whenever an opponent loses a creature, you can pay some life and put it on your board side, which is super good. And being that you have a 6/6 flying, you're probably going to have a decent blocker, so you'll be able to kind of save your life total up to spend on their creatures. And also, I guess it's pretty relevant that it's going to end up exiling whatever you get. So there's a lot of creatures you don't want to go into their graveyard because they're going to recur them and keep getting value. So you might just want to get it onto your side so that it can exile when it dies. However, if they remove Lorcan, then it dies, it won't trigger this exile thing, so it'll go back to their graveyard. Sort of a complicated thing, but it's not a guaranteed exile, basically, once you get it onto your side, because if they get rid of him first, that just ends up going back to their yard. However, a board wipe would still exile everything, because it would still count this trigger at the end. Yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty cool card. Lorcan definitely seems like he's worth playing. All right, next up we got Wand of Orcus. 2 and a black, legendary equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks or blocks, it and zombies you control gain death touch till end of turn. Nice for zombie tribal already here. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many zombie creature tokens. Equip 3. All right, yeah, this is super good. You probably want to put it on a death toucher to begin with, or just a zombie so that it gets death touch when it attacks. And if they don't block it, you just get more zombies. Kind of expensive, 3 to cast, 3 to equip, but just giving all your zombies death touch and potentially getting a bunch more zombies every turn could really take over a game. So I think this Wand of Orcus is potentially a must include in zombie tribal. That's pretty good. Oh, Bag of Devouring, nice. 1 black artifact. Whenever you sack another non-token artifact or creature, exile it. Okay, gets devoured. Cool. 2, sack something, draw a card. Sack an artifact, creature, draw a card. Of course, it's going to get exiled, but maybe you don't care. Now, this could be already, before reading this last ability, this is really good if you like to steal your opponent's stuff temporarily with something that, I don't know, gains control until the end of turn or something. Because then you can sack it and draw a card, and it gets exiled. All right, 3 tap, sack, Bag of Devouring, roll d10, return up to X cards from among those exiled Bag of Devouring to their owner's hands, where X is the result. Okay, so I guess if you're sacking a bunch of your opponent's stuff that you've been stealing, then this sack is not that great. But if you've been sacking your own stuff, it could potentially, quite a bit of it could end up back in your hand, which is pretty good. I'm not convinced that this is super good, but it seems okay, or potentially okay. Ideally, you want to probably sack one of your own artifacts or creatures in response to it being removed. I guess it's also notable that if you've been kind of doing this all game and sacking some of your own stuff and some of your opponent's stuff, when you finally do sacrifice the Bag of Devouring, you get to choose the X card, so you could choose all your cards and leave their stuff exiled. So, yeah, it's potentially some pretty good upside and really cheap to bring out, so that's nice. Alright, next up we have Dance Macabre, 3 black sorcery. Each player sacks a non-token creature. Sacks a non-token. That's interesting. That's non-token. Roll d20. Add the toughness of the creature sacked. 1 through 14. Return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. Alright, this is already quite good. 15 plus. Return up to 2 creatures put in the graveyard this way on the battlefield under your control. Alright. I feel like this is pretty good. being that it's a non-token, they're going to have to sacrifice one of their things that they've played out of their deck. Could be something really good. And they can't just say, oh, I'm sacking this plant token that I don't care about anyway, or something. So this seems all right. It's got a decent removal on it. I wish it was instant, but okay. But the big upside is that you get to put stuff back in. So ideally, you would have like a 0 board state when this happens, and you get a couple of their creatures. But even if you do end up sacking one of your creatures, you could choose to bring it back. And most likely you're going to get this 15 plus because this added up toughness between 4 players is probably going to be pretty high. Yeah, I think this card's actually quite good. It's going to take away from all your opponent's board states. It's going to add pretty heavily to your board state. I think it's solid. It's going to be just as good, if not better, than casting a 5 CMC creature a lot of the time. I like it. All right, next up we have Death Tyrant. Let's see if we can get him totally on. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, we'll just deal here. Death Tyrant, 5 mana. Beholder Skeleton. Okay, he's a 4/6. It's got Menace, negative energy cone. Whenever attacking creature you control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, you get a 2/2 zombie token. So whenever you lose an attacker or an opponent loses a blocker, now this could just trigger if your opponent's fighting if he's just on the board. You don't necessarily have to create the chaos to get the zombies. It could just happen passively throughout the game as people are battling. Or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies. You get a 2/2 zombie creature. Yeah, this guy's already really good. Because if you bring him out and just he sits there all game and people are in general fighting, you're just gonna get a 2/2 zombie anytime a blocker dies. Basically, it's not yours. All right, you got 5 and a black. Return him from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is really strong. Sure, the return is super expensive, but the thing is, he can just sit in your graveyard. People will forget about him. And whenever a situation happens where a bunch of blockers are going to die, you could pay that 6, put him onto the battlefield tapped, and then suddenly you get a bunch of zombies. Okay, Death Tyrant's super good. And on top of all that, he's got Menace. And he's a 4/6 for 5 mana. It's a good casting cost here. And a pretty good. Sure, it's 5 colorless, but only 1 black. The nice thing is you don't have to have a bunch of black mana. It's going to be really easy to splash into decks with multiple color. Like, often when there's a bunch of black symbols in the casting cost or activation, you're almost leaning pretty heavily towards mono black or just a 2-colored deck. But this could fit really easily into 3, 4, or 5 colored decks. So yeah, I'm going to say Death Tyrant is super good. One of the better cards we've seen. Alright, next up we have Grave Endeavor. 5 black black, roll 2d10, choose 1 result. Turn a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the result. Then each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the other result. It is instant, which helps, but the casting cost is huge just to get something back from the graveyard. Being able to do it as a combat trick is nice. And then this additional effect of opponents losing some life and you gaining some life is nice. I'm on the fence about this one. I feel like overall it's pretty bad just because the casting cost is so high. It's just got a lot of situations where if they have a big creature to get, if someone has a giant creature to get, it's going to be nice. The lose life is going to be, I mean, it could be nice, but it also might just be like 1 or 2 life, and who cares, But you could choose the higher result for the damage and life gain. Because the only thing the other result is +1/+1 counters on the creature, which you might not care about too much. You might just want, I don't know, one of your creatures back that has a nice effect. You might not care about it getting a bunch of counters. So I wish it were a little bit cheaper, but it's still not too bad as an instant. you could, I guess, you know, the best case scenario is you you bring in a surprise blocker, so you can block and kill one of their attackers, and then you get all this other stuff in addition, and you're adding to your board state. So potentially some pretty big upside, but you know, for 7 mana, you would hope there would be some pretty big upside. That's a lot of mana. Alright, Grim Hireling, 3 and a black, 3/2 Typhoon Rogue. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. Alright, this is already crazy good, just gonna say. So he just passively puts this on, yeah, just an effect on your it's just a static thing that's going to trigger for all your creatures. You don't need to attack with him for it to happen. So already quite good. If you have a lot of evasion, you just bring him out, you start getting treasures. And if you attack multiple opponents, you're going to trigger this multiple times. If you only attack one opponent, you can only create 2 treasures. But if you hit all 3 of your opponents in Commander, you're going to create 6 treasures, which is pretty crazy for an attack. He's already going to pay for himself real quick in that case. Alright, black, sacrifice X treasures. Target creature gets -X till in turn activated sorcery. This is totally just a bonus ability. Even just this first part is really good. So I'm going to say Grim Hireling is super good, especially in certain decks that want treasures like Corvold or something. And he's only 1 black, so very splashable. Yeah, I think Grim Hireling is good. I think it's really good. Alright, next up we got Netherese Puzzle Ward. 3 and a blue. Enchantment. Focus Beam. At the beginning of your upkeep, roll d4, scry X, where X is the result. Okay, so scrying for up to 4 is quite good. During your upkeep, you get to really control your draw. It's very nice. And also we have Perfect Illumination. Whenever you roll a die's highest natural result, draw a card. Whoa. Yeah, this is super good if you have got a lot of roll. But even without any other rolling, you got a 1 in 4 chance of drawing a card and then scrying X. Or I guess it would be draw a card then scry 4. Yeah, I feel like this is quite solid. You get this out early with like first turn Soul Ring and then like second turn this thing. You're setting yourself up for a nice solid game with no bad draws. Ooh. Yeah, I like that. I really, really like this card. It's, you know, its downside is that it doesn't do anything for the current board state. So if you need like a bounce or a removal or some kind of interaction like right now, or else you're in trouble, it's essentially not going to be the card to play. But if there's ever a chance where you're like, okay, I kind of have a free turn where I'm probably going to survive till my next turn without needing to do anything too big, it's going to be a really great play. Overall, I think this is going to be super good in control decks. And being that it only has 1 blue in casting cost, it's going to go easily in a lot of decks. Yeah, I feel like this is quite good. It's not like as good as like Aristic Study or something. Not even close, but still pretty good. Pretty good card. Wow, we've got a lot. I need to take a moment. Okay, it looks like we're going to have to do a continuation of this video. I'll go over these last 3 cards here, and then we're going to do another part of this Commander stuff because there is just a bunch more and we'll be here for hours. But these Commander cards overall so far, first impression here, they're looking really strong. Looks like it's definitely worth picking up some of these for your Commander stuff. A lot of really playable, cool cards. Phantom Steed, 3 and a blue. Horus Illusion with Flash, 4/3. Whenever ETBs, you can exile another target creature you control until Phantom Steed leaves the battlefield. When Phantom Steed enters the battlefield, exile another target creature. So you're forced to do this if you have another creature. So it's both a drawback and a downside depending on how it plays out. Because you get a surprise blocker, you add to your board state. But if you have to like exile something that you don't want to exile, it's kind of a bummer. But also you could save your stuff in case of removal. Like if they try to remove something of yours, you could play this in response and get the exile, so that you'll eventually get it back for essentially free, which is probably better than it being destroyed. So it's kind of situational, we'll say. All right, but it's got more stuff. Whenever Phantom Steed attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of the exiled creature, except it's illusion. Sack it at the end of combat. Okay, now this just got crazy. This just got pretty crazy good. Okay, so the big downside is you gotta wait until the steed dies to get your creature back. But the big upside is, if that thing has an ETB, you can just attack with the steed, get the ETB trigger, and if they block and kill the steed, you get your creature back and get another ETB trigger. Yeah, this could be like pretty crazy in some decks, really, this Phantom Steed. It's a pretty cool card overall. It's got some interesting uses. It's definitely more of an advanced play card. We really got to think about what you're doing with it, but it could really mess up people's game plan with what you can do there. Because ideally, you'd save a creature, or you target something that's about to die, and sure, their removal spell becomes wasted, and then you get to start doing this, creating copies of it and attacking with it, and if it's something that had an ETB to begin with, you're going to get that ETB all the time. Yeah, this card has some potential really strong top end. Alright, Rod of Absorption, 2 in blue, artifact. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, exiled instead of putting it in their graveyard as it resolves. X, tap sack. You may cast any number of spells from among them. Exiled Rod of Absorption with total mana cost X or less without paying their cost. Yeah, this is quite good. So I don't know, it's also could be quite bad because it's going to like take a while to charge up basically, and then you got to dump mana into it. So it essentially does nothing at first, which is its big downside, is you got to wait for it to, people got to play some instants or sorceries, and exiling them could be quite relevant. But then later in the game, you can just tap and sack this and get a bunch of instants and sorceries that you need. So there's definitely some iffiness about this, where for a good while it's just basically going to do nothing, and if they remove it right away, at least they had to use a removal spell on this instead of something else. Overall, I feel like this is pretty good because you can just bring it out, people are going to forget about it, it's going to charge up. They're probably going to eventually remove it once it gets some powerful stuff under it, but even if they do that, it's still exiled a bunch of stuff and they got to spend removal on it. So even at its like worst case, it's still not bad, and in its best case, it's crazy good. Just getting to cast things like Grave Endeavor maybe, or I don't know, Hellish Rebuke, or any of these big spells. You know, there's a lot of them in Commander. Or maybe you just get to cast like some ramp, like Cultivate or something, which would be really good for blue. Blue would love to cast Cultivate. So Rod of Absorption, I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like overall, I like it. It's a nice, nice interaction. All right, and the last card we're going to review today, Winged Boots. 1 in a blue. Equipped creature has flying and ward 4, equip 1. Oh, I love the really cheap equip cost. So 2 to bring out, 1 to equip. Give it flying and ward 4. Yeah, I think this is quite good. The equip cost being so low and the ward 4 and flying. Like, it's not like a bomb or anything, but if you've already got a lot of creatures and you want them to stick around the longest possible, and you want to be able to protect your board state or protect your life total with a flyer, you know, because often if you're sitting on a pretty big flyer or something, people can't attack you too easily, so they're going to attack other people. So this Winged Boots could have a pretty big overall effect on the game, just by putting it on one of your big ground pounders, or like in blue, maybe you got a big Serpent or a Leviathan. Giving it flying and ward 4 is going to be pretty good. This is also quite splashable with only 1 blue in casting cost, so it's not like it's only going to be played in mono blue. Anything with blue is going to potentially play this. Pretty good, pretty solid. All right, stay tuned for next time where we will review the rest of these cards. Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.